Good afternoon, America. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. This is Lisa Benson, your host of the Lisa Benson Radio Show for National Security Matters, your source of accurate, measured, and intelligent information regarding foreign policy and domestic security issues to protect you and your family. We have quite a show for you today, as there are breaking news all over the globe. Today with us is Congressman Trent Franks, who will be on in just a moment. Sarah Stern from the Endowment of Middle East Truth. Clare Lopez, who is the Senior Vice President of Research for the Center for Security Policies. It is breaking on all fronts, ladies and gentlemen. Today in the Sinai Peninsula, a volatile area between Israel and Egypt, Islamists claim responsibility for a weekend 2 suicide bombings which killed an Egyptian soldier near the Egyptian city of Harm el-Sheikh. Also tonight in Israel marks the remembrance of nearly 25,000 deceased soldiers of war and terrorist attacks. In Hebrew, it's Haz-i-Karon. And we acknowledge that today, and our music will be throughout the show, Hak-Tikva, which is the Israeli national anthem and means the hope. While in Kenya, Al-Shabaab is picking up their attacks. For days, there have been attacks on buses and civilians. More than 3,000 Somalis were arrested in Kenya. These have reverberations in our communities around the United States as our large Somali communities fight back the penetration, including Phoenix, Arizona, of members of the community that are connected to Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliate. In the Ukraine, Russia is on the advance in eastern Ukraine. In the cities that I have visited, in Odessa and Kiev, there are attacks, and it is, I dare say, how that situation is going. Russia is on the advance. And in Odessa today, there were many protests and many people, as married, the pro-Russian supporters are just penetrated Odessa and Kiev. In Syria, Bashar al-Assad is seeking his third term, 7-year terms, to be the president of Syria. And while here on the home front, we deal with Secretary of State John Kerry. If you are near your computer, please go to www.lisabensonradioshow.com. We have a story up there about John Kerry, written by our commentator, Nathaniel Moffert, who wrote a story about Kerry Must Go, and that is on my website. Also, we are dealing with Benghazi. And with us at the end of the show today will be Clare Lopez at the bottom of the show talking about the Benghazi Select Committee. Will the Democrats even be in that committee? Will there be a committee? Will it be a very politicized committee? And will Nancy Pelosi continue to say, Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi? And that is her way of saying to you, the American people, she wants you to deflect away from that because she knows full well what the implications mean. I am going to right now go straight to it, folks, because I have a very esteemed guest, and that would be Congressman Trent Franks, who is someone we can count on as Zionists, protectors of Israel, protectors of freedom and liberty and Constitution, family values, and the unborn. Congressman Trent Franks, are you with me?
I am, Lisa. It's so good to be with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Congressman. I just want to tell for those listeners who are listening from around the country, and I believe that many people who listen to my show value you, whether they live in Minneapolis or South Carolina. You represent Arizona District 8. You describe yourself as a conservative Reagan Republican. I believe you are still are you still the chair of the Israel Allies Caucus?
I am, yes, ma'am.
And that is a tremendous boost for us in Arizona to have you on that caucus. You are a member of the Refugee Caucus, which is something that the National Security Strike Team of this radio station focuses on a lot. You serve on the Armed Services Committee, the Judiciary Committee, Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security Subcommittee. You are the chair of the Missile Defense Caucus. You are the chair, Congressional Electromagnetic Pulse, of which I am happy to say I am now a member of the Citizens Commission of that and have a full-blown effort with this radio show on protecting the U.S. grid. Congressman, it is my esteemed pleasure to wish you well today. Thank you for being here.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Lisa.
Welcome back. Sarah is the founder and the president of Endowment for Middle East Truth, EMET, and that is Hebrew for truth. Sarah can be seen educating legislators on Capitol Hill, educating Jews and Christians around the country on the truth regarding Israel. What is a two-state solution? Do we want a two-state solution? And this week, I am sure she's got a lot to say about Kerry's comment on apartheid, as last week she was here talking about the unity government of Hamas and Fatah. Congressman, back to you. First, I want to ask you, and you just returned from Israel, correct?
I did.
And which trip was that? How many times have you been there?
Oh, I've been there many times. This is the first time I've ever been able to take my children, though, and I was just so moved by everything. So were they. It was a life-changing trip for them, and I was able to have some important meetings there as well. But this there was some vacation involved in it, and I really enjoyed it. Now, I have to jump in here and just say, with Sarah Stern on any program, it is always, I know that I'm with the queen of the ball wherever she goes. She is
Congressman,
just,
I am totally
honored.
Well, the two of you are pretty amazing people, and the third amazing person is Clare Lopez. And between the three of you, we have the triathlon of national security, counterintelligence, and pro-Israel advocates on the line.
And I just want to interrupt here. You people at Arizona do not know what a gem you have in Congressman Trent Franks.
You're probably right.
I wish he were President of the United States right now, sitting in the Oval Office. Things would be a lot better for all of us, really.
And I have told him that. We had a powwow about 6 years ago after this administration was put in office, and we sat in a corner, I think, at the Capitol Grill and had a cry. Sometimes I think Trent remembers that, and maybe he doesn't because he meets so many people, but it was a tear-jerking moment when I asked him, what the heck is going on? And he said he didn't know. But I have to say, Congressman, I hear through the grapevine, first of all, the children, they are young children, and that trip is very, very grueling, Congressman.
But, they did so well. We flew from Phoenix to London and then London into Tel Aviv, and they just put their little tray tables down and put their little pillow on there and
God bless them.
Fell asleep. They were amazing.
Now, I understand that you met with Prime Minister Netanyahu.
We were scheduled to meet with him, and we were there in Tel Aviv with the former ambassador, Michael Oren.
Yes.
And we were getting ready to go into his office, and about 10 minutes before the meeting, they had an emergency cabinet meeting because Fatah, as you know, had joined with Hamas. And it prevented our meeting, which was a heartbreak, but I understand it completely. And this is the development there with Fatah and Hamas is a big one. It shows that Fatah is always trying to, tell the world that they're trying to seek peace and that the Israeli government is the one that drags their feet. But the truth is, I think Fatah makes every excuse they can not to gain peace. They're offered peace many times, and they always say no. Perhaps they'll have to find a job if they do find peace. Maybe that's one of their reticences. But the telling aspect of this is when they join a terrorist organization that murders little children just because they're little Jewish children, instead of trying to put out a hopeful hand to an Israeli government that's doing everything they possibly can to create some peaceful solution. It really does tell us all we need to know about Fatah and about Mr. Abbas in particular.
It's a very scary scenario. And on the newsletter, on the National Security newsletter last night, I wrote an op-ed opinion, which people, I don't know if they listened to me a while, but, I felt, and tell me if you agree, that Kerry put the blame squarely on Netanyahu and his resistance to stop permits in the Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem area. And
that's exactly right. I mean, that's a disgraceful. I mean, I have a little bit of a difficult time finding words to describe that. But it's not only preposterous. It's counterproductive in the most profound way. Here is somehow a scenario where you would say that we would diss Israel, we would criticize Israel more for building homes in their capital city than we do countries like Iran that are building nuclear weapons with which to threaten the entire world, or Fatah, which joins with terrorist organizations to blow up innocent men, women, and children. I mean, the hysterical, preposterous notion of what Mr. Kerry said is really beyond my description, and we tried to describe it. We called him out on it to suggest that somehow Israel is in danger of becoming an apartheid nation, to use his words, when really, Israel, there's only one place in Israel where you don't have religious freedom, and that's on the Temple Mount, where Christians and Jews are forbidden to pray.
Isn't that the truth? Did you get up there?
Yes.
Oh, good.
And but it's just outrageous. The day before we were there was a group of people that went up there. We don't know where they were, I think, guided by Jews, but it was a Christian group. And they said, "Don't pray. If we see your lips praying, that we'll throw rocks." And that's exactly what they did. They had a group of Palestinian youth there that were throwing rocks at people because they saw their lips move.
And that happened to me, Congressman, and at the Tomb of Rachel just in December. I have to pay a bill and go to a commercial, but I have a very significant question for you, and I'm sure Sarah might have a question for you. So if you could stay with us just a few more minutes, I want to ask you if you were taken into Judea, Samaria, and saw some of the things that I saw. Folks, welcome back, America. Thank you for being with us today. On the air today is Congressman Trent Franks, a true friend to the American people and to the Jewish people and to Israel. Sarah Stern, President and Founder, Endowment for Middle East Truth. Clare Lopez, Center for Security Policy. Congressman, getting back to you, did you this trip to Israel that you just took? Did you go into Judea, Samaria?
I did.
And did you see the red signs that say "No Jews Allowed"?
Yes.
Was that appalling to you?
Unsafe for Jews to travel there. There was multiple warnings there, and I just find that astonishing, But it's a reality. In fact, we visited someone who was a very close friend of a very close friend there in what would be Old Benjamin there in Samaria, and they had a security gate, electrified security gate, just to be safe in their home. Wow. And it was a pretty profound situation. They warned Jews not to travel there.
It is. It was shocking to me to see those signs. And in the same country that has those signs, "No Jews Allowed," is a vibrant, high technology nation, the startup nation of the world, where billionaires are being made every single day by the ingenuity, scientific know-how of those young men and women coming out of Weizmann Institute and Technion and everywhere else. And so it's a real contrast when you go into what the world calls the settlements and what we call neighborhoods and we call Israel. Now, getting back, Sarah, let me ask you a question. This comment, I'd like you to ask a question to actually the congressman, if you don't mind. Or a statement, and have you both reply. This comment by Kerry, of which he says that Israel is headed into an apartheid nation if we do not walk lock and step with the administration and resoundingly accept the PA as it is, even if they do not accept us as a nation. This is a very serious infraction, I believe, on the human rights of and the sovereignty of Israel.
Absolutely. It is absolutely unconscionable to use, first of all, the word apartheid. That cheapens the historic value of the word apartheid. Apartheid was a systematic, cruel system of racism implemented by the government in South Africa, trying to make the people of the black people of South Africa oppressed and to deny them their basic human rights. When in Israel, there are Arab citizens serving in its Knesset, its parliament. There are Arab judges. There are Arab citizens that volunteer to serve in their armed forces. Their national beauty queen is an Arab. And every Israeli hospital treats all of its citizens, whether Arab or
and they
Christian.
live alongside Arabs. Arabs
Right.
and Jews live alongside each other. It is hard to understand.
Right.
Congressman, in your opinion, this debacle with John Kerry and his this diplomacy that he subscribes to, and this closed door statement that he made at the Trilateral Commission. Is this such an infraction that he should be? I mean, he's not going to get fired, but should we, the American people, demand more than just an "I'm sorry" or the Israelis?
Of course, I do. I mean, our office was very direct about this, and the bottom line is that Mr. Kerry has lost all unbiased credibility in being any sort of an intermediary in the conflict in the Middle East, and it's become no longer a peace process, but more of a process of rhetoric and just propaganda for the PA, and it really concerns me because there comes a time when we see the diplomatic bucket spill over and somehow the people of the world are no longer engaged in this in a way where they really understand it. When I was there in Israel, one of the guides said something to me that really sobered me. He says, Jerusalem has been totally destroyed 7 times in history and 46 times in some fashion, some part to partial fashion. Mm-hmm. And it just screamed out at me that, this can happen again. If it's happened before, where we saw this, I think, chosen nation of Israel, where their capital city of Jerusalem was destroyed before, can we not envision the reality of the danger today? And with Iran moving towards the nuclear weapons capability, I'm just astonished that we're not more engaged. And I'm really astonished that this administration seems to have all the facts completely inverted.
Completely inverted. And, Congressman Franks, I very often get phone calls from candidates and members of Congress who need help with their campaigns, or the first comment that they make to me is, Lisa, I'm pro-Israel. Yeah. And I caution that. And I want our listeners to be very, very careful and to listen to this, because you could be pro-Israel and wrongly pro-Israel. You can put Israel in harm's way and still call yourself pro-Israel. And I guess, I don't know if you've read the One State Solution by Carolyn Glick, but I guess I'm one of those people that believe that the two-state solution is not possible. But this administration, and so does Prime Minister Netanyahu, still says that there is, they use that two-state solution. What do you think is the outcome of Judea and Samaria?
Well, I absolutely think that Judea and Samaria are part of Israel, and that they traditionally and historically that's been the case. I mean, Israel was there 3,500 years ago. This is not something that just came about in the last century. And so, I mean, my position is very clear on that. And my concern is that as we see Israel trade land for peace, as they've tried to do so many times, it seems that it's only brought terrorists closer to their urban cities and their citizens. And I have to say to you that I believe that it's fine for the Palestinians to have a state, but that it should not be in the Israeli territory. Jordan would be probably an ideal place for that, but the notion that somehow Israel, this tiny little country, 3 of which they could put in my congressional district before it was redistricted, that somehow they have to give up land when they have 0.2% of the Arab landmass, is ludicrous on its face.
And with that, Congressman, I want to remind my listeners around the country that you are a stalwart supporter, genuine patriot, strong constitutionalist, and someone that our people listening to me today should support. So for those folks out there, please get to Congressman Trent Franks. Got a fabulous website. And for those who follow me and know that we have the www.protecttheusgrid.com, know that it's Congressman Franks who is working to get the SHIELD Act out of committee and the SIPA. Congressman, I want to thank you for joining. We're going to come back. Thank you so much, Congressman. God bless you. God bless the children and your family. Have a happy day, and we'll have you back again real soon because I could talk to you for an hour. We'll be back with Sarah Stern. Thank you, Congressman Trent Franks.
Lady, shalom to you.
Shalom. Welcome back, America. This is Lisa Benson, your host for the Lisa Benson Radio Show for National Security Matters. And I would like to give a shout out right now to the Tea Party community and those folks out there who have a very, very vibrant site. And I know that I am streaming live there today. So thank you all for listening. And if you're Twitter people, you can tweet back to me at Secure USA Talk. Right now I have on the line Clare Lopez with the Center for Security Policy. Welcome back to the show, Clare.
Thanks, Lisa. Always glad to be back with you.
And you did a great job on Huckabee last night.
Oh, many thanks.
Real proud of you. And also on the line is Sarah Stern, Endowment for Middle East Truth, EMET, Truth in Hebrew. Sarah, getting back to you, can you expand upon the comment made at the Trilateral Commission by Kerry and what kind of a deleterious effect this has on foreign policy for us as we are seen around the world?
Well, yes. First of all, I think everybody should know that before the internally gut-wrenching decision of 2004 that the Israelis had made to withdraw from Gaza, a letter was sent on April of 2004 from President George W. Bush to Prime Minister Ariel Sharon expressing what the president called an ironclad assurance, quote-unquote, that the United States reiterates its steadfast commitment to Israel's security, including secure and defensible borders. Mm-hmm. He said, and I quote, in light of new realities on the ground, including already existing major Israeli population centers, it is unrealistic to expect that the outcome of final status negotiations will be a full and complete return to the armistice lines of 1949 or the 1967 borders. And all previous efforts to negotiate a two-state solution have reached the very same conclusion. Those apartments that Mr. Kerry had referred to as being the reason why the talks broke down would have been built in Gilo, which is a suburb of Jerusalem,
yes, and
is considered an already existing major Israeli population center. What has happened is this administration has gone from being an honest broker in a dispute to being clearly an advocate for one side. It's as though the self-same person simultaneously serves as both the referee in a dispute and the coach for one team. And
that is so well put, Sarah.
Well, it is so terribly upsetting because Mr. Kerry's biases could only serve to further calcify and legitimatize the maximalist demands of Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority. It leads to those who want to wage further war or violence against the Jewish state. It leads credibility, or to isolate and boycott it, and to further weaken the already illusory chances of a real, lasting, sustainable peace in the Middle East.
I'd like to bring on a caller, Larry from Fountain Hills. Welcome back.
Good afternoon, Lisa. This is a question, I think, for Claire. But I was noticing on the Ben Rhodes memo that's been publicized this past week.
Oh, we're going to get back. We're going to get to that, Larry. We're still on Israel. Can you hold that thought and stay on the line?
Yes, I will.
Okay, because I got to get to another break. Thank you, Larry. Stay on the line with us, Sarah. On my website is a featured article by Nathaniel Mofford, Kerry Must Go, in which he talks about John Kerry not being the sharpest tool in the shed, being he's a Yale guy. He's way over his head. Sarah, do you think so?
I do think so. I mean, what we have been witnessing throughout the globe, not just in Israel and the Middle East, but throughout the globe, is a weakening of America's credibility and respectability. I mean, I think perhaps the two worst comments was in August of 2012 when he spoke about the Syrian red line, and if he saw chemicals being moved around or used, that would be my red line, and we all know what that happened. It evaporated. And when he spoke to Vladimir Medvedev about his hot mic moment, saying that after this is his last election, and after the
Yes.
next election, he could be more flexible. We have lost all legitimacy and all credibility.
Sarah,
And-
can you stay with us for a few moments?
Sure.
I want to talk about the Trilateral Commission when we come back and bring Claire on. And Larry has a question. KKNT 960, The Patriot. Lisa proudly sitting here for the Lisa Benson Radio Show for National Security. We'll be right back. And Claire on. And Claire, this Trilateral Commission, and then we'll talk about Benghazi. This was something that came about with Jimmy Carter. Do you know that?
Yeah, I mean, it dates back, but, the point about it is that our Secretary of State, I think Representative Trent Franks put it so well, and Sarah as well, describing that his role as arbiter, as friend and ally of Israel, and objective arbiter of this dispute, is out the window. He is, throwing in completely on the side of the Palestinians, who are terrorists. I mean, just not just Hamas, but Fatah, its affiliates, obviously the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO. They are terrorists. They are jihadis, more to be specific about it. And that is simply not a credible position for an American Secretary of State.
Sarah, thank you, Claire. Sarah, what is the course of action moving forward now? We have Netanyahu in one corner trying to keep his coalition together, a very fragile coalition. So he bounces back and forth on how to make everybody happy to keep the coalition and everybody with him intact. And then we have Abbas, and he's running for another a term, I understand, and he's just joined forces in Gaza with Hamas and Fatah. It's all so fragile and chaotic and triangulated. And then you have Kerry, who doesn't know how to get himself out of a paper bag. What's the next moves?
Well, that's the $60 million question. We thought actually last week that Secretary of State John Kerry and Martin Indyk were going to give a pause to this and going to go pivot to another place. They were supposed to also pivot to Asia, and unfortunately they have even weakened America's standing there because there is not enough of America's military presence to go around because our military has been so gutted. It's terrible. Yet they seem to be coming back to this. Secretary of State Kerry just had an interview with Nachum Barnea from the Israeli newspaper Yediot Ahronot, and they put the onus of the breakdown of the talks squarely on Israel's shoulders because of these apartment units that they were building.
What a travesty.
What a travesty. Not mentioning, of course, the fact that the only condition that has constantly been placed on the Palestinian Authority since Oslo is to stop the incitement to violence and terror.
And what a day to remember that when we honor and memorialize 25,000. Stay with us for a few minutes there, Sarah. I don't want to lose you. I want to toss it back to Claire because in the remaining minutes that we have, I want to talk about Benghazi. Claire, what is the possibility that we're going to have this select commission?
Well, let me give a brief update, if I might, for your listeners. I want to mention three related topics that occurred this past week, and really, I think, have changed the course of our investigation into what happened in Benghazi, and of course, greatly increased now the likelihood that the American people, the families of those who died and were injured there, and those who survived that terrible night, the attack of September 11, 2012, vastly increased the chance that we will all learn more about what really happened there. Number one, this past week, Judicial Watch succeeded in prying loose a bunch of emails, several dozen emails from the White House under court order that they be released finally, which really put into sharp perspective the role of the White House in fabricating a story to cover up what happened in Benghazi. The fabrication, the false narrative that was concocted and very clearly shown in these emails inside the White House, specifically by Ben Rhodes, but also including others at the top levels of U.S. policymaking inside the White House, inside the National Security Council, show that the emphasis, just a couple of days, this email was dated after the attacks, that the White House was most clearly focused on deflecting blame from the president, deflecting blame from what they would call a failure of policy, meaning in Libya and more broadly the Middle East, and a determination to protect and shield the president, who deserved neither. The second topic that I wanted to mention was the testimony before Congress this past week of Brigadier General Robert Lovell. He was the Deputy for Intelligence at AFRICOM, the United States Military Command, Africa Command, in September 2012. And he gave testimony before Congress this past week, lamenting that the military really should have been prepared to and should have intervened, should have tried to save our people, who in fact were instead left to fight and die alone in Benghazi. Clearly, that was emotional testimony from the general, but please, this is a year and a half later. He is still lamenting that they didn't do something. Why didn't he do something at the time? Why didn't he either speak up, step out, or resign his commission if the military were forbidden, if that is the case, and from helping those in Benghazi?
And thirdly, and then I want to take Larry's question.
Well, wait a minute. One more topic, and that is the Select Committee, of course, that has finally been formed by Speaker of the House John Boehner after so many months and so much pressure to do so. And I really think the email revelations were the tipping point for that decision by Speaker Boehner.
I was shocked.
For doing it.
I was shocked. We got to commend him for doing that because we didn't think he would. But I think that they understand that this is now a very political issue that could be used for the election cycle. Larry, you can come on now, and happy to have you on and to ask Claire the question you have.
Thanks so much. Quickly, Claire, two pieces of information that I'd like explained. One is on the Ben Rhodes memo. One of the copiers, one of the persons to whom it was addressed was a fellow named Mehdi Al-Hassani. I wonder if you could comment on him and also how Operation Zero Footprint and arms smuggling from rebels in Libya, Al-Qaeda rebels through Turkey to Syria have been implemented here. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. Well, very quickly, the smoking gun email, as it's been called, which was sent by Ben Rhodes, who was a senior official in the White House in charge of matters like communications, and that email sent in September, just 3 days after the attack in September 2012, sent to other senior members of the White House, including National Security Council people, other communications people like the spokesman for the White House, Jay Carney. And then this addressee, as you mentioned, whose name is Mehdi Al-Hassan. Mehdi Al-Hassan is a member of the senior White House staff, but also with very clear Muslim Brotherhood connections. He was the leader of the Muslim Student Association during his school years, his university years, and he also attended a very problematic mosque, the Islamic Society of Boston Center, the one attended by the Boston Marathon bombers, and whose board of trustees, founding trustees, included Abdurrahman al-Amoudi,
this is on
Muslim brother,
on the
Al-Qaeda financier, now in jail.
So this is the stuff you don't hear on cable news.
No, tip of the hat goes to Waleed Shobat on this one.
He did get it.
He published this.
He He got it
really
right.
Quickly, then the second topic that you asked about was the zero footprint policy of the U.S. government. Zero footprint refers to the policy of the U.S. government to facilitate the delivery of weapons that were basically produced in Eastern Europe. They were routed through Qatar, financed by the UAE, United Arab Emirates, put on ships, sent through the NATO blockade of Libya in 2011, and delivered to al-Qaeda rebels, al-Qaeda militia. This was clearly a violation of material support to terrorism. It was knowingly, deliberately the provision or the facilitation of provision of weapons to known al-Qaeda. CIA was on the ground. Ambassador Chris Stevens, then our envoy to the rebels, was on the ground helping to deliver these weapons to al-Qaeda. These are the same militias and al-Qaeda groups that later would kill our people. So that is what zero footprint means, that it was done covertly.
Yes.
It was under a presidential intelligence finding.
Yes.
And it was not meant to be public, but of course these things do have a way of coming out.
Recap. So as Larry pointed out, as Waleed Shobat pointed out, on the memo is a Muslim Brotherhood operative working within the White House?
Yes, that is correct.
Is this a name that has come up before, or is this a new name?
Not really received a whole lot of publicity before this.
So we have now suspicion that Muslim Brotherhood operatives may have been behind the covert operation in Libya that resulted in the Benghazi attack? Is that what we're saying?
The influence of the Muslim Brotherhood members and affiliates who are appointees and advisors to this administration clearly had an effect on the formation and the execution of U.S. foreign policy, in particular as revolts broke out across North Africa in 2011.
Benghazi.
Yeah.
What difference does it make, America? I have to conclude this show today with this. I have to say that Waleed doesn't, I don't read him often. He got it right this time. My hat tip to him and to all of America needs to get this out. And that's why we have the National Security Communication Strike Team of America and a closed page, and we drive this narrative. We will help drive this narrative. We need to explore this further, because if this is a new name on this memo, a member of the Muslim Student Association, which is the heartbeat of Islamic infiltration into this country, boy, have we got a problem. Sarah, closing words, something to say about Israel on this day.
Well, we're commemorating tonight the loss of 25,000 Israeli soldiers who have given their lives defending the state of Israel. And tomorrow morning we will be celebrating Israel's 66th year.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, we are absolutely delighted that Israel has managed to survive despite being in that extraordinarily tough neighborhood. And we hope that it will live for many, many, many more years into the future. Thank you so much.
God bless you, Sarah. God bless you, Claire. Keep up the fight, you two warriors. And for the rest of you, please contact me through LisaBensonRadioShow.com. God bless you all. God bless America. God bless Israel. Good night.